This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Lakewood, Colorado. I'm here at Firefly Autism. Since 2003, this nonprofit has been transforming the lives of children and families living with autism. I'm joined with Jesse and Ken. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. Let's start off a little bit about yourself, Jesse. Sure. You were formally educated right here in Denver, Metropolitan State University of Denver. Really a passion for giving back. Nonprofits, really community is important to you. Share with me a little bit how you got involved with this organization.
So what I always tell people is I'm sort of like an accidental executive director, because that was not my intention when I joined Firefly Autism. I actually came on as the vice president of development to help create a development arm for the organization, because way back when they realized that there was an offset between what we could bill and the amount insurance companies were willing to pay. And so in order to make that equitable, they needed to raise donations. And so I came in that role, and about a year and a half later was put into the position of executive director, and I've not looked back since.
That is excellent. Let me ask you, Ken, as Chief Operating Officer, basically been with the company, looking at 6 years here. Share with me a little bit about your passion of why you thought this was a great organization.
Yeah, so they recruited me out of Florida in 2014. The organization was struggling with the direction it was going to take, clinically speaking, with some changes in the organization, changes in funding, changes in regulation. They wanted to take the direction of the organization in a different way, and so they recruited me out of Florida. I like to joke, it doesn't snow in Florida, so I was a little bit put aside with the what I call the white poison from the sky, the snow. So, but I fell in love with Denver, I fell in love with Colorado, and I absolutely fell in love with Firefly. The mission has always been at the forefront. They had some struggle in how to deploy and implement that mission, but they needed some expertise. I've been doing this for over 35 years, so I felt there was an alignment between my own personal and professional trajectory and that of Firefly's, and as Jesse just said, I haven't looked back.
That is interesting. Let's start off, first of all, let's educate the viewers out there. I mean, autism is a disorder that is pretty complex. Why don't we define what autistic spectrum disorder actually is?
So what I always tell folks is it's a neurological processing disorder. It's a different way of being. It's a different way of seeing the world, of being able to communicate. And one of the biggest focuses, number one, is to educate the public. When you've met a person with autism, you've met a single person with autism, because not one diagnosis is alike, not one, worldwide. And that's what makes autism such a puzzling piece for scientists, and as they do research to try and understand what autism is. But what I can tell you, and Ken can share with you, is that we know what works, and we have seen time and time again results that have changed not just the life of the child or of the individual, but the life of their entire universe. Because I always say, when you think about autism, it's not something that just impacts the person. It impacts everyone around that person, from their immediate family, extended family, friends, their entire universe. And so when you make a difference for them, you're touching the lives of so many others.
That is amazing. I mean, with statistics out there like 1 in 54 that can be diagnosed, how important is early intervention in the success of the program?
Well, very, very important. The diagnosis of autism has been around since 1943, when Leo Kanner first diagnosed and used the term autism. So it's evolved over the years. It used to be considered a mental health disorder, and for many, many, many years, people were not forthcoming to get diagnosis because they were being blamed. Parents were being blamed. At one point, there was what was called a refrigerator mom. So moms were being blamed for causing the autism in their children, which occurs 4 times more in boys than girls. So there's been a lot of misunderstanding over the years. In the 1960s, we started seeing the advent of the use of applied behavior analysis across different types of behavioral disorders. It took a while because of the predispositions and the misunderstanding about where the diagnosis came from that we started using it for children with autism. One thing that we do here at Firefly is we treat the entire spectrum, and we mean that not just the autism spectrum, but the spectrum of the human condition. So children as well as adults, boys, girls, and Jesse mentioned even we do a lot of parent training, so we refer to this as a continuum of care. So when we talk about early intervention, because autism is primarily demonstrated by a lack of communication, social reciprocity, and a restricted repertoire of behaviors, as in anything, whether you're talking about any other disorder, even medical disorders like cancer or other medical problems, the earlier the better, because you can treat without the history and without having poor treatment. One of the areas that we emphasize here at Firefly is if we can get the child in earlier, we can sort of undo some of the things that happened to them in the past. There's a lot of misunderstanding about there as far as adequate and evidence-based treatment. So some of the children we get have had poor treatment, and so the earlier we can get, the better we can, not just to ameliorate the issues that the child brings to us, but also sort of undo the problems that they had in the past.
I mean, this is a disorder that requires work in many areas all at once. I mean, one of the therapies that is utilized here is that of the ABA, which is Applied Behavioral Analysis. Share with me a little bit about that. I mean, it's been around since the 60s. Has this evolved, and do you feel it's gotten better?
Yes, and I'm a board-certified behavior analyst, so I can speak to this. I've been at BCBA since 1989. Before some of our staff have even been alive. So I've seen an evolution of it. It's actually been around since the 1900s in different formats, but B.F. Skinner sort of took it to the next level in the 1950s. But in the 1960s, it started to be more towards applied rather than in laboratories and universities. Basically, in a nutshell, it's identifying in the individualized and customized manner why the individual engages in the problem behaviors they do, why they're having the learning challenges that they do, and customizing it to the individual by rearranging the environment in a way that produces the behavior that you want and eliminates the behaviors that you don't want. So, for example, we identify what we call the function of a problem behavior. So if I'm engaging in tantrums because I can't speak, and so if I engage in a tantrum and you provide attention to me when I engage in that tantrum and I make that connection, since I can't speak, my tantrum acts in the way that I would normally communicate. So it's how I communicate to people. Rather than saying, hey, leave me alone, or hey, I want attention, I'm using my behavior to do that. So what we would do, and then once we've identified that, is we would then teach the individual how to better communicate and making sure that that tantrum doesn't then gain attention. So one of the things that we do here at Firefly is we really emphasize supporting our staff and having highly qualified trained staff. So our staff, many of them have master's degrees, most and all of them have bachelor's degrees, and we really emphasize high value training for them so that they can implement those strategies customized to those individual children.
That's interesting. I mean, you provide services not only home-based, but also center-based. Let's start off with the home-based. Why is that a critical component? And tell me what happens in the home.
So we have an amazing team under the guidance of Dr. Amanda Kelly of therapists, professionals that go into the home and work one-on-one with a kid. But what's so amazing about home-based is that not only are they working with the child, they're working with the family in the unit so that the family can walk away with golden nuggets that will support them after the therapist has left the environment. Home-based is an area that we have now expanded due to the pandemic. We've gone into the telehealth. And what's so amazing about the telehealth model that this team has created, number one, they don't do anything without the research and the data to back up to ensure the safety, to ensure the integrity of the treatment, and to ensure that the child is going to have maximum success, right? But the cool thing about Firefly is that because of the research and the data, now we're implementing for rural communities across Colorado. So when you look at at how Firefly continues to evolve. I've seen an amazing evolution in just the 6.5 years I've been with the organization. We continue to transform. We continue to get better, and Home-Based is one of those programs that has just flourished under the direction of course, Ken as our Chief Operating Officer, but also under the guidance and direction of Dr. Amanda Kelly, who leads that particular program. So it's amazing to watch. And these are kids that don't necessarily come to Firefly, but need that extra support. They might be in preschool, they might be in a school district, or they might be grown-ups in their 60s and 70s that just need that support.
That is interesting. I mean, not only is it exciting, like you say, to watch it all evolve like that, but actually not only just watching the individual, but the parents. I mean, you're really empowering these parents. I mean, the parent involvement has to be a key factor in the success of overall. Is that something that is really emphasized?
You know, one of the things that when Ken joined Firefly, one of the things he was insistent on with the team, and now it's become part of the culture, that if parents aren't going to be engaged, we're not going to waste their time, and we don't need them to waste our time. And the reason being, it sounds cold, but the fact of the matter is that we have a wait list of families that are waiting to get into Firefly, and it can be anywhere from 12 months, it can be 18 months. And so from our perspective, we've seen the greatest amount of success when it's an entire unit working together for the ultimate goal of that child for success.
Obviously, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it, and that takes the entire team, not only here, but at home as well. Let's move into the actually, let's move into the center-based services. This is really from ages 18 months all the way up to 21. Let's start off with the early childhood services. Share with me a little bit what they're going to learn here at the center.
And is just to piggyback what you guys just talked about, one of the things that makes Firefly unique is our Continuum of Care model and this parent engagement. So at every level, we want the parents, or as we refer to, stakeholders. So school personnel. I joke that even the mailman, if we can get the mailman involved, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a country to raise a child with autism. So involving all of the parents, whether they're separate, and all family members, is integral to our effectiveness, because our objective is to move the child away from a more restrictive level of service as is appropriate. Here at the early childhood, we can take kids, as you said, as young as 18 months. And that means that once they get diagnosed, if they can get here and start participating in the therapy, then we see amazing results. So we primarily focus on a developmental model in our early childhood. So we immediately assess the child's behavior as it compares to their neurotypical peers developmentally. So many of our children are at variance in where their neurotypical peers are at their chronological age. So a child may be 2 years of age, but mentally they're much lower. So we call it closing the gap. We want to work on the skills and behaviors that would allow them to more approximate the behaviors and skills of their peers. So a lot of it is communication. A lot of it is in social training. So one of the reasons why we emphasize so strongly on the quality of our staff is throughout the day, the child is learning. If you went and looked at the environment, you'll see the kids laughing. It is not a traditional school environment. We don't usually have tables and chairs like we do in school. The kids are constantly moving around. Pre-COVID, you would see a lot more movement. So we emphasize capturing the child's motivation and using the environmental variables at play to manipulate the training so that we're going to produce the behavior that we want to see. So for example, if a child is interested in a particular set of toys and we're trying to teach them to ask for them, so one of the things we do here is called MAND training, M-A-N-D. It stands for command or demand. So it's teaching them to request things. That's a huge thing. I can mitigate and work on my environment if I can communicate. And so I need to be able to do so when the thing that I'm asking for isn't present. So I need to be able to ask for something. If I'm thirsty, I want water. If I'm hungry, I want food. If I'm lonely, I want attention. So we're constantly having the child ask for those things. So we might say if the child's interested in a particular toy, we'll place the toy within their eyesight, but far away for them to get it, and they have to ask for it. So that's just an example of how we capture the child's motivation to get them to communicate. As I like to say, we kind of reference Malcolm X, by any means necessary. We'll get we use a variety of different communication. We use what are called talkers, AAC devices, picture symbols, sign, vocal speech. We'll use smoke signals or carrier pigeons if that's what it took to get the child to communicate. We'll take whatever is necessary, and we build from what the child provides for us. So we build on what the client's able to do, and then we continue to push that envelope.
Like we said before, many areas all at once. I mean, as they're learning to engage with their environment, there's a lot of skills they're actually learning at one time. We're talking about social skills, language skills, communication skills, play skills. Is the cornerstone of the program really fun, at the same time balance that is utilized here?
So I always, when I give tours to donors or to people that are interested in Firefly, I always preempt walking into the Early Childhood Center with, it's going to look like it's nothing but a play day. They're having fun, they're playing games. But understand that every move those children are making is very intentional, and it's set up by their therapist because they're working on a variety of issues. It could be motor skills, it could be communication, it could be the ability to identify. And so it's set up in a way that looks like it's fun and games, but it really is integral work and purposely set up in a way for that child to be able to navigate through, and at the end of that exercise walk away with a learning, which is amazing, which is one step closer towards them learning how to communicate appropriately, how to communicate, how, as Ken said earlier, how to ask for things instead of throwing a tantrum or instead of hitting. So they learn. It's fascinating to watch. It really is.
I mean, at a glance, it's simple and it's friendly for the child, but it's very complex what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, it's amazing. This is done in a classroom format, but it's also done one-on-one. How are the professionals picked out? He had mentioned master's degrees. Is there certifications or a little bit of all the above?
Well, and we sort of take the mountain to Mohammed. So, wherever the child best learns, we capture that motivation. One of the reasons why we're highly successful is that, unlike traditional school environments, most people remember being in school and they may not have liked it because it was a one-size-fits-all. The square peg had to fit the round hole. We don't believe in holes or square pegs. We customize everything to the child. So everything is about capturing that child's motivation. One of the reasons why you see it looks like fun is because it should be. The research is abundantly clear. People learn better when they're enjoying what they're doing. Things that I think sets Firefly aside, and one of the things that engages me and why I love working with Firefly is we really emphasize the staff. So we not only support our staff in ways that other organizations don't, but we do have a pretty high bar for the type of staff. Not only do they have to have degrees, but they have to be trained in an effective and appropriate manner. So our line staff are what are called registered behavior technicians. That's a credential that the Behavior Analysis Certification Board has created. So it requires a 40-hour training and several hours of monitoring and ongoing training. And they're responsible for implementing the strategies designed by a board-certified behavior analyst, or BCBA, which is a master's level or a doctoral level. And they're required 1,000 hours for a BCABA, which is a bachelor's level, and for the BCABA level, it's a master's level, and that's about 1,500 hours. So we also here at Firefly, we've kind of created our own kind of space where people come to learn So I call this like a learning hospital or teaching hospital. People come to us. We have 21 of our staff that are in coursework to become board certified behavior analysts. So people come to us to kind of learn how this technique. And then on top of that, our staff are constantly going through training. I'm trained in crisis management, so all of our staff are trained in appropriate levels of crisis management. We have a nurse that does all of our CPR, first aid, standard precautions, all of that. So people come to us. In fact, we have relationships with universities, internships. One of our strongest is with the University of Denver, but we work with other universities, and they come to us and we provide that internship here so they can learn and establish sort of where their path wants to go in their career because of the quality of our staff.
That is interesting. We're talking about easily over 100 years of combined experience, without a doubt, under one roof. Let me ask you, as we move from the early development to the secondary age into the teen years, how important is it to actually teach the skills, not only the social skills, but even the speech skills, for these students to go out in the real world, hang out with their peers, and fit in? Is that something that is a confidence level that I imagine the parents are able to see quite often?
So what I tell people about Firefly, why Firefly is so special, when you're talking about older kids, primary, secondary, age 7 through 21, these are children that Firefly is their last hope. Not all of our children, but a large portion of them, right? Because these are kids that have fallen through the cracks, that have not received the appropriate diagnosis timely, did not get the support that they needed within the school districts. No fault of the school districts. The problem is that there's an incredible lack of funding, as we all know, in our school districts. They don't have the tools, they don't have the expertise, they don't have what the child needs they don't have the equipment to provide everything that they need. So we have seen tremendous growth, even in kids that others would have written off within the school districts, even families. They come to Firefly and they blossom. Now, not all kids that we have here are going to go on to live independently. Majority of them are probably going to need some support, but we make a difference for them so that when they do leave Firefly, they have basic life skills in place. They have ways to communicate that they didn't have prior to coming to Firefly. And that could be, as Kenny alluded to, sign. It could be through picture. It could be through devices. It could be through language. And so the work that happens here day in and day out, it's inspiring, but it's also incredibly intentional when you see the work happening between and I can't say enough about the staff, to watch how passionate they are, to watch their incredible love and devotion to every child and every child's individualistic plan, and how they incorporate that to make them successful is beyond what you're going to find anywhere else.
That is amazing. I mean, you mentioned about in the public school. We've got public schools, private schools out there. Are you able to integrate the Firefly program into those and offer some services as well?
Yeah, it's one of the areas that we like to emphasize. It depends on a variety of factors, including the acceptability of our treatment. So we work really hard with schools to transfer. The goal for all of our programs is to get the child back to their traditional or typical environment, so their homeschool if possible. And part of that is working with the target school or wherever the target environment should be. As Jesse alluded to, we teach a lot of functional skills, and our objective is to have those skills be functional in those environments once they leave here. Part of that is training the staff in the receiving school or wherever the next level is. We have many of our older clients go to work. One of our clients ended up working in his family's company at Tiger Rock. He ended up getting employed there. We've worked with other schools. One of our most successful cases was a young man who came to us some problem behaviors. We early on realized that he needed to go back to, he ended up going to Columbine High School, and we provided the staff. So about a year and a half, we provided the staff every day there. We provided the clinical supports to help support that school, who had plenty of staff. And it wasn't about the lack of staffing. It was the level of expertise and the focus on this functional training that allowed him to more seamlessly get back. And we ended up going, we actually sat with him at his graduation and helped him. He got to walk with his peers. And that was a really awesome time because what he needed to do was get back and be in that social context with his peers.
That's amazing. I mean, really, this is one hub for all of the autism spectrum treatments all in one place. I mean, it's a one-stop shop when it comes to that. You have this location here. Are there other locations that are able to serve Colorado as well?
So right now, we're also located in Colorado Springs. We have a home-based clinic run by Mandy Radis there in the Springs. Ken and I are looking at expansion back into the Western Slope. Right now, Dr. Amanda Kelly and her team are looking at areas throughout Colorado and our rural communities that have a high need and utilizing the telehealth models to begin with, to begin that treatment. Ken has a couple of folks out of state, one in Florida, who is also working in Florida as a Firefly, and we have a potential couple of other employees in different states as well. So we look at our model as a holistic type of approach, and we look at in the next 5 years to see Firefly on a national scale, duplicating what we do here in Denver, what we've mastered, and taking it on the road, so to speak, to serve other communities in other states.
That is exciting. Like you mentioned early on, this is more than just the child. This is basically about the siblings, the families, workshops for them, workshops for the parents, workshops for the community in awareness across the board. Let me ask you this. As a community, I mean, this is a nonprofit. What can they do out there to help support this?
So I always say this. I started as a development director, and what I would always say is there's a cost differentiation between what it costs to treat a child and what the payback is from the insurance companies or even Medicaid. And what I would always say is that every dollar makes a difference, and I invite every donor. Every time I get notification that a donor has made a contribution, I don't care what size it is. I want them to come and see their dollars at work, because without the community support, Firefly couldn't continue to evolve, couldn't continue to transform. We couldn't continue this work without the support of our community. So I always urge people, participate in Colorado Gives Day, or if that's not your thing, come to our website, make a donation through the website, or get in touch with me. My information, Ken's information is on our website. We're always available to help our community.
That is excellent. I mean, you've held a lot of positions yourself, being it community relations, social responsibility. Like you say, you're now involved with this organization. Does this continue to be rewarding for you?
I'll tell you what, I have not had a job in my entire life and in my entire 60 years that I can say that every day I go home, I can put my head down on the pillow and feel good that I am really doing the work that needs to get done to make a difference in people's lives.
That is interesting. Ken, I'll end with you. Obviously, this is something near and dear to your heart. You bring years of experience across multi-states. Probably pretty excited to see this thing venture out. Share with me, if someone has a child out there and they're struggling with it, what would you tell them?
I would say, first of all, there's hope. You mentioned a few minutes ago about supporting the organization. In addition to dollars and donations, one of the ways that families can support Firefly is to advocate for effective and evidence-based treatment. There are a lot of what I call snake oil salesmen out there that try to gain money from parents, and because we still don't know what causes autism. So there are disreputable people out there that are constantly pulling at the dollars for for parents to want these magic treatments. So the one thing I would say is that there's hope, but parents, especially for those that have autism, have to become advocates for their children and articulate that with school districts, with their community center boards here in Colorado, as well as advocating effective and evidence-based treatment with the providers. There are still a number of providers out there that provide less than quality services, and the child comes to damage. We, every day, have to work with individuals here at Firefly and undoing some of the damage that was done by poor quality providers. So educate yourselves and learn about what our quality providers. One of the things we do here at Firefly is we early on, Jesse and I decided that it wasn't about us. So we partner with other organizations, advocate groups. Oftentimes we don't serve the child, but we help them get services by someone else, because we see our mission is not just about Firefly, it's about helping children.
That is amazing. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website. First of all, on the website, learn more about the mission of this organization. An organization that began basically back in 2003. They're now able to serve southern Colorado, here in Denver Metro, basically looking at the western slope, who knows, up north. This could be a program that will go across the nation, helping you as a parent. Maybe you have someone out there who is struggling, a child, you're not even sure if it is autism. They have diagnosis that they can help you with, diagnostic services they can provide as well. And like basically Ken said, understanding that there is hope, but understand that it is your piece of the success is getting involved and making sure that you're engaged with your child as well. Once again, that is Firefly Autism, helping them discover the world and helping the world discover them. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.